Hello. Welcome back for those in the US, happy day after observing MLK Day. I hope you're getting back to work in a very smooth and refreshing way rather than being hit with a million different things. So welcome to the third installment of Empathy Power Up around happiness and pursuing happiness. And so Kevin has been talking to us about this kind of like aha moment that he had a few weeks ago around happiness and kind of like his theory of happiness and how we should be pursuing it. So this is going to be that third installment. We're going to I'm going to talk. We actually had wanted to come back and circle back on some thoughts that we didn't really get to go too much in depth with. But we want to like kick it off first with that, and then I'll kind of do a little bit of a recap through the conversation. I think we'll do a little bit of a recap. So, Kevin, do you want to like bring us back to what we talked about last week a little bit, and kind of like reinforcing some of those concepts?
Yeah. So, hello everyone, and thanks, Amy. I love talking about happiness. What we talked about last week was we talked about like these ideas, like this from what we know currently from research and science, this hedonic psychology around happiness and the eudaimonic psychology around happiness. One is more focused on immediate pleasure and the absence of negative mood, and like the eudaimonic is around life satisfaction, is around the idea that there we can remove negative moods, and that gives us more of this ongoing happiness. And then we talked about the things that we think make us happy, like money, job, bodies, grades. But in fact, what data and research has shown that when we achieve that or when we get there, it's not what we expected. It doesn't meet our expectations. And then we talked a little bit about how happiness is genetically set. About 50% of it is from twin studies that have shown that it's about 50% from genetics, and the rest is through the stuff that happens around us and mostly our actions and thoughts. And the part that I wanted to sort of go into that we didn't have time and we rushed through last time was a little bit around the idea that how our mind sort of understands some of these things. So when we talk about optical illusions, that is an example where our mind is fooling ourselves. When we see something and we think we see something, but it's not really there. And like, that's an important reference point to understand that we believe something, and optical illusion is an example where even though that's not true, we completely believe it, and we believe that's the case. So when we are expecting happiness or when we're expecting something, we believe that's what it is, similar to an optical illusion. And then the part, like an example that sort of like our minds, our minds don't think in terms of absolutes. So even though our world, we try to create them, we try to create this black and white, we try to create this binary around everything to simplify. Mm-hmm. But our minds don't think that way, and our minds are sort of judged relative to reference points. We really love reference points. A good example of reference point would be people who win silver medal are less happy than people who win bronze. Because with bronze, you're like, oh, I placed. So my reference point is either I placed or I didn't place on the podium. With silver, is like, I placed, but I didn't win.
Yeah.
And so it gives us this idea of the way we think and the way our mind works is related to reference points. And our mind helps us finds patterns in things we may not even have that, but it finds a pattern that we truly believe that. And if we understand and absorb that, then we can be a little bit more aware around maybe having and I used to be that way. I remember in college, a friend of mine would share about the idea of multidimensional universes and ideas that there could be this theory that there's the string theory and all these other theories that exist in physics. And I didn't understand it at all. And I was vehemently like, no, that is wrong. This is all stupid, blah, blah, blah. And I was obviously wrong. These are theories that have been proposed and it could happen. And we don't have data. It's beyond our understanding. And so that is sort of like an optical illusion where I believe something so much that it's like true and nothing else can be the case. That was something that I had to struggle with. I'll pause here.
Yeah, it makes me think about all the biases that we have. Like I'm envisioning, I forgot the person who did this, but he or she did this kind of like circle, like visualize the 200 different kinds of biases we have as individuals. And I think about that, like bringing that into it is like, in a way, that clouds our judgment on every single thing that we do and our past experiences. And some of the learning and the teaching and the conversations I have is like, there's biases we even have on like, I asked the question on like what makes us human. We asked this a couple of weeks ago, and I'm bringing that into some of the teaching that I'm doing recently. And it's like, we have biases around that, right? Like we bias ourselves towards positivity over negativity, right? But being human is also about, having negative feelings and negative thoughts. But often we have a bias towards adding this toxic positivity into the workplace or the world that we do in. So, that's this top of mind when you said all that.
Yeah, I love that. And what's interesting is these reference points, they're like compounded through our TV and social media. What are other people doing? How am I doing relative to other people? And that impacts our happiness. Those reference points impact our happiness in that I may be doing really well in work-wise, for example, but I just see like, oh, blah, blah, blah in the world, like a 19-year-old started a startup or something, right, on Shark Tank or something, and they made $3 million or something. And that might impact, it becomes a reference point for me, like, wait, what? And then it changes. So we are so accustomed to those reference points, and then our social media and all of these things that sort of reinforce that further as well. And so that's something that I think it was important to understand how we understand happiness and in understanding some of the research that's come through. And the other piece is, and it comes from hedonic adaptation, is the concept of hedonic adaptation, where when it's hedonistic happiness, we are basically becoming more, we become adapted to it very quickly. So it's like, if I buy I'm really excited to buy a tablet. It'll be really fun for a week, and then we just get used to it, and then we don't derive as much joy. It just becomes a thing. And then the next thing is, is someone trying to hack this stream?
Oh, I blocked them. So
okay, great.
Yeah, I'm doing that on the back end
right error
while you're doing
messages.
this.
And if some like so, and versus eudaimonic, which is around experiences, because they're short-lived, we experience it. So when we do it more, so like escape rooms are an example. We love doing escape rooms. My husband and I are friends. But if we did escape rooms every day, we would be bored. We do them once every 6 months, once a year, and they become really fun in the moment, for example.
Yeah.
So we don't get used to it. So these are just some concepts I wanted to make sure we understand, like what research has. These are some takeaways from the current research and science that we talked about. So that when we talk a little bit about what I'm proposing, we are informed by some of that as well.
Yeah. The part about comparison makes me think of this tweet that I saw recently, where it was a person who was like, I just interviewed a Forbes 30 under 30, right? And compare stuff. I'm definitely not 30. I'm going to be 40 in like a few weeks. Woot woot. But that 30 under 30 list always me being like, dang, I didn't even accomplish all the things that I think I'm most proud of, I did in my 30s, right? So I can't even think about early 30s. But this one tweet said, to this individual was like, I interviewed somebody on the 30 and 30 list, and these are the things that he does. And one of them was like, wake up at 4:30 in the morning, take a cold shower every morning. And then like the fourth or fifth one is like, I don't know if you saw this one, but it was like his father owns the company that he works at. And so that's why he's VP of X, Y, and Z. Right. And you're just like, oh, I get it. Right. It's like you already know the person. That's why you got this, right? And it's like who you're connected to and where you are. And I see that so often in the world.
I think these lists are incredibly toxic in our society. 30 under 30, 40 under 40, because your example you shared is really great. It's setting some sort of a under 30, and it's a reference point. It becomes like, wait, why did I not? It's like, wait, everyone has different. Everyone has different experiences. People get lucky. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, all of them had very influential contacts and network, and they just happened to be there. So it's just where you happen to grow up, where you happen to live, who are you surrounded by. Those things help you into this shape. And I totally agree. Like I used to want to be on those lists, and then I realized how toxic they were. I was like, wait, this like I rather it should be these are people that 30 people and their impact, nothing to do with the age.
Yeah. Like, and then the people are really changing the world for the better, right?
Yeah. And the final reference point around experiences is if you think about the time when you share experiences with others, when you've had the experience and then you tell the stories of those experiences, you don't the happiness from those experiences don't diminish over time. So like whenever I go on a trip and I tell my friends, oh, this is the trip, or this is what happened, and these are things, and I tell that story to different friends, and every time the level of happiness I enjoyed there and my memory of it is incredible. But then when I talk, we don't talk about, oh, I got an iPad after like 3 weeks, and then we talk about, right, or something. It's that example, and that's where the idea of eudaimonic happiness and my theory is aligned towards that eudaimonic happiness idea, and it sort of pushes that a little bit further.
I love that.
So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just posted on social this morning. I found there was somebody who I posted it from, and I can't remember the person's name. So, but it was essentially like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We talked about that last time. Yeah. It's about like, these are the emotional needs that we have as humans. And a lot of them are just being like, I think the one in the middle was about being in community with other people.
Yeah.
That's where we're wired as humans to be in community.
Evolutionarily.
So in a way, we have like this dual-sided space where it's like, yes, I can be hedonistic and want the things, but I think capitalism is pushing us in that direction in so many different ways. But also, I think we have this desire and need, and that's how we grow in community with other people. So it's both of those things. Yeah.
And hedonism was used. I remember when I told a friend who was trying to not let me be gay. I remember at that time, a very toxic friendship. So I said, okay, it's over. I am not going to be friends with you. And he got so angry on the phone call. He was like, you're a hedon. Or so, and I didn't understand it at that time. And the idea of like, I'm putting myself over others or whatever they thought. But anyways, one thing I wanted to cover for time is these something food for thought I want to share out so that we'll dive in deeper next week is I'm proposing there's these 5 fundamental truths, and there can be more, but I'm talking about these specific 5 that we all experience and that we all have, and we all need to understand. And I think that's really important for us to proceed into this journey that we're going down, is these fundamental truths. Number 1, you are capable, and I'll say we are capable and deserving of happiness. There's people, and I, for most of my life, believed I didn't deserve happiness. I'm not capable of being happy. In fact, I used to stand in front of the mirror and tell myself, you will be alone, you will be happy, and you're going to be okay with that. Like, seriously. And we need to accept that truth. And I believe that is the truth. And it might be difficult for us, even at that moment, if someone told me this, I would be like, yo, fuck you, I don't understand, right? Like, so, But this is true. This is a fundamental truth we need to accept, because for us
Yeah.
to get to happiness, we have to accept these truths. Number
Mhm.
two, your happiness is in your control and depends completely on you. Our happiness is in our control and depends completely on us. That is something that I learned from my mom. My mom constantly
Okay.
wanted happiness from me, my brother, my dad, and all these people. And then
Mhm.
all of it was derived from us. And then when we are living our lives and not meeting her set expectation on how we should do,
Mhm.
she was
Mhm.
unhappy.
Yep.
We need to accept this
Disappointment.
truth. The third one that I wrote, we
Mhm.
have unique superpowers. All of us do,
Yep.
that make us awesome and impactful.
Yep.
I've talked to people even as recently as 2021, and people are like, I don't have any superpowers, I'm not special. I'm like, no, we need to believe this. We need to believe, and if
Mhm.
we want to be genuinely happy, we need to get there. We all have unique superpowers that make us awesome and impactful. Number
Yep.
four, we are loved and we can be loved. Each of us, even whatever the circumstances, there's someone who loves us, and we may not see it, and there was times we didn't see it, but we are loved and we can be loved by more. We need to accept that truth. When we do start accepting that truth, we will love ourselves more and others will love us more. And that final
Mhm.
truth that I propose is, you can learn and practice empathy. So many people, especially people on the autism spectrum, have told me, oh, autistic people can't learn empathy. And there are some researchers who are not autistic, but they're in that field. I'm like, that's not true. In fact, I talked to a
Mhm.
large number of autistic people after that conversation. And they're like, no, that's not true. I can learn empathy. And people on the autistic spectrum. And so I should rephrase that. But people on the autism spectrum or people who are neurodiverse, they do have the ability, and everyone can learn and practice empathy. If we accept
Mhm.
these 5 fundamental truths that I propose, it gets us ready to be happy.
Okay. But it sounds like you have to do the work, right?
Yeah.
On top of that, right? So there's a couple things that come up for me when you say those 5 truths. So one of the things is I have this mug and it says "You are good enough."
Mm-hmm.
And I have a whole bunch of mugs that like tell me a lot of stuff
Mm-hmm.
that I've gotten along the way. Whether friends have given them to me, family, but one of them says "You are good enough," and it's just, and behind it is this picture of a like very voluptuous woman, and it's something that I like to drink and
Mm-hmm.
have with me because that's my core truth is like I haven't always felt like I've been good enough, and it has pushed me to do so many different things in the world, right?
Yeah.
And and but also it's made me like not care about my own self-care. So that's something that's true. And then the second thing, let me look at the notes, the show notes that we had. But you know, I think there's just like this concept of like being loved and having superpowers and embracing those superpowers is that I think all of this comes down to self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Is that who are you, what are your unique talents that you can offer to the world. And often when we're doing our day-to-day like mindless living, a lot of times we forget to tap into that superpower or tap into other people's superpowers, right? And understand that or take the time even to
Yeah.
understand that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we could even talk about what are the barriers
Yeah.
because that's where my mind works is like what are the barriers to us feeling these things, right?
Yeah.
Beyond just those biases that we have, but the day-to-day barriers. Yeah.
And it's recognition. When we recognize someone's superpower, that's what makes them aware. So I'll use my
Yeah.
husband for example. I remember the first spark, why what I considered love at first sight for him was when I saw him, it was something weird. And it was weird
Mm,
is not a judgment in itself. Weird is something that is different from what we understand. And so
mm,
weird, and I think that is what got me so excited. And that's his like superpower. One of his superpowers out of many is that the
mm,
weird, like he brings questions. He brings that little bit of that weirdness that we all need to grow. And that
mhm,
what was so exciting in that space. And
mm,
so recognizing each other's superpowers is a way to help people find those. And I do that all the time as a leader, as a manager. That's literally what I do with my team is like, this is your superpower.
mhm,
Let's lean into that. And I see the impact of your superpower and get them excited about it. And hence why I call myself Captain Empathy, because I'm like, I recognize this is my superpower, so I'm going to lean into it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a good place for us to think about, right?
Yeah.
And to bring into practice this coming week is like, how are we tapping into understanding what is our superpower? And those fundamental truths are all important, but like reflect on that a little bit this week. But also, I think it might be good for us to think about what is our superpower that we have that we're bringing to the world, and how does that show up in the workplace or doesn't show up in the workplace, in our personal lives too, with our friends and family, and how can we bring that out more in our work and their day-to-day lives. So I think that's a great action for each person to do after this call. So all right, Kevin, this has been so wonderful to be in community again with you. To hear your thoughts around this, and to kind of just like, this is all like impromptu in a lot of ways. You're sending me the notes like right before the call, and now I get to jump in with you. So you get to see this like live, and this is these moments that I have with you allow me to kind of just be like more like improv, right? Just to kind of see what's on my mind and to share. And it's been so incredible doing this with you this past few weeks. And I can't wait for next week.
Yeah, I'm excited. We're going to dive into genuine happiness, making others happy. And then we're going to, hopefully my goal is by the end of this, we can work to understand whether this theory has any legs, and maybe even find parts of your happiness driver in this process. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Holly, for your engagement. We love you. We see you.
Thank you. Yes. Have a good day, everyone. And I will see you next week. Take care. Bye.